So, welcome today. We have with us Deborah Freedman, actually an old friend in some respects from my days in Connecticut, joining us today to talk about her newest book called Partly Cloudy. So, welcome, Deborah.
Thank you.
My first question is this. I love always reading what authors say on the back flap because sometimes it
Uh-huh.
changes with each book. And I love that this one said that you love to watch the clouds and paint them from your Connecticut home. So tell us about that passion for watching and painting clouds. When did it begin, and how did that impact the creating of this book?
Well, I can't honestly say I had a passion for clouds until I started writing this book. But I think it was one of my daughters who planted the seed. She's always texting me photographs of beautiful skies and beautiful clouds. And I I've always loved to paint clouds in every one of my books. I love to paint clouds, and it's so cool and fun because there's so many, there's just a jillion different ways you could do it. And so I thought at some point, wouldn't it be fun to make a whole book full of clouds and about clouds? But then I realized I don't actually know all that much about clouds, and I had a lot of questions. So I had to start learning about them, which was fun.
And I love that something will lead to asking questions, which leads you to
Hmm.
the research. So to follow
Yeah.
the trail of questions, I think is so important.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the publisher describes the book this way. Two curious bunnies enjoy watching clouds go by, but when they look at the sky, they each see something completely different. While one bunny likes to use his imagination, the other bunny can only see the science behind them. Together, they learn that cloud watching is much more fun when they can see it through each other's eyes. So, talk about how you
Mhm.
decided to teach the science of clouds and the water cycle, but do it in this really sweet, whimsical manner with those two sweet, sweet little bunnies.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, the book I made before this was called Tiny Dino, which is also a kind of hybrid fiction, nonfiction book, or it's fiction with facts woven through it. And I discovered making that book that I really enjoyed doing the research, but also just learning more about things that are just around me all the time. That book happens to be about a hummingbird, and so I learned about, the my everyday backyard birds, which really enhanced my life. And then I'm thinking, oh, what else is out there? Just, we look at the sky all the time. And then I realize I don't know that much about it. So it's just given me a lot of joy to learn about all those things. And then putting in it a book with a story, I love to write. I love illustrating. And so it just kind of allowed me to bring two parts of myself together, the artsy side and the wonky, wondery side.
And I love that you included such terrific back matter in this book. Is that sometimes challenging because of the number of pages that you have within a book?
Well, it's always a trick. You do have a limited number of pages in a book, so it was a balancing act that I worked out with my editor, um, how long to make the story. And so it's a pretty simple story because of all that back matter, to make room for all that back matter.
Right, right. But it
Yeah.
serves then such a greater audience too, because the youngest of the students can just really enjoy the story part,
Hmm.
can pick and choose the pieces of the back matter, but then your older grades, this is perfect for them learning with the water cycle. So it's a great,
That's what I'm hoping, that it'll work on different levels. And when I read it to kids, I don't read all the every fact, and I certainly don't read the back matter. I just say, I'm going to read the story for you. If you're interested in this, go back and look at all those facts.
right, right. It's excellent.
Yeah.
That's one of my biggest things is looking for a book that has that extensive back matter for those teachers or the students who do want to go deeper, that it's
Hmm.
contained right in there. Next question is, showing the main text through speech bubbles indicating the bunnies were conversing. Was that a decision you made right from the start to go with the speech bubble route? And I'm always curious too, as an author and illustrator, does the text come first or the image for you? Because I know everyone probably works a little bit differently. Do you see the pictures first or do you have the text first?
Well, what I always tell kids is that, I'm known as an author illustrator, but I think of myself really simply as a writer, but a writer who works with both words and pictures. So it's always when I let me see. know if you can see this. This is a page from one of my sketchbooks for the book. I'm always just doodling and writing and doodling and writing as I'm figuring out a story. And even when I pull those words out, I have the pictures in my head. So it really all goes together for me. And with the speech bubbles, I did this in Tiny Dino as well. I think it just, that's just how it was born in my head with the speech bubbles. But then I saw that graphically, it gave me a way to make the story and the facts distinctive. You could separate them out. We have our speech bubbles and then we have our sidebars.
Right, right. Which
Yeah.
again, we love that too, because depending on the audience, you can ignore those and for the first
Hmm.
thing and then go back. So it gives it many ways to interact with the text. Every part of the book is just dissected as a piece of art and all the different moves that the artist is making. So when we have so many elements like you do in your books, including like the end papers that are
Hmm.
illustrated and underneath the book jacket, the richness of the conversation from preschoolers all the way up through the oldest children I teach, it really is remarkable. And it's changed the whole session because it's not this passive, it's truly a collaborative effort in constructing meaning together and using all those different elements. Are you always working with watercolors?
I do try other things. I think I keep falling back to watercolor because I keep learning new things I can do with it. Before I start every book, I do a lot of experimenting, and I'm always finding new things I can do. The thing about watercolor is anyone who's tried it knows it's not forgiving at all if you try to control it. But the great thing, it's the same thing as you get these happy accidents. It's full of surprises. And I love that about that.
Neat.
So that's why I keep coming back to it. If you let watercolor be watercolor, you can really have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah. Now and when you're working on the book, what is the size? Is it the actual size of the actual book paper, or is it actually bigger and then it's digitally um,
Well,
uploaded?
it varies. I always work directly on paper. I prefer painting and drawing on paper, but I do often assemble or edit things on the computer. Sometimes with that watercolor, I find the effects so delightful that I'll actually do it smaller than you see in the book and then scan it at a very high resolution so you can really see those bleeding edges and the wonderful quality of watercolor.
Wow.
But it varies depending on what I'm doing. A detail might be original size or I might be enlarging it.
Now, did you just out of curiosity, as a child, were you also dabbling in painting?
I wasn't a painter, but I was very much a child who loved to make things. So whether it was drawing or painting or sewing or gluing cardboard things together or just making stuff, I was always making things.
Interesting.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed is the Eric Hall Museum is going to have a new exhibit running late April through November called Open Plus Shut, celebrating the art of end papers. Put
Yes.
on their website. I mean, love illustrated end papers, especially the ones that change from the front to the back.
Hmm.
The question for you then is, tell us how you decide to use that space to engage and add meaning to your books.
Well, I'm so excited to be part of that exhibit at the Carl. But to me, I want to use every inch of the book. If I'm allowed to do it, I'm going to do it. And the end papers give me a chance to enhance my story. They can set the scene for the book in the beginning. They can add a little coda at the end, which is, I think, what I try to do in Partly Cloudy. So they're not essential to the story, but they hopefully add another
Yeah.
dimension.
So you're part of the exhibit?
Yes, my end papers from Blue Chicken are
Oh,
in that
nice,
exhibit.
nice,
Yes.
nice. I'm gonna have to make a trip up to Massachusetts during that time because I
Oh,
would
I
love
can't
to
wait
see
to
it.
see all the other things in
I
it.
know, what
Yeah.
a wonderful exhibit. And it's funny, the 6 books that I picked out to promote for summer reading, I didn't have any kind of theme in mind. And now that I've looked at the collection of them, every single one of them was all about that fostering imagination, and being in the present, appreciating nature.
Hmm.
Any thoughts for families? So just
Well,
kind
that's
of,
exactly what I would say is, obviously get outside. And it's okay if that 5 minute walk turns into an hour. I mean, there are stones to turn over, there are holes to look down, there are acorns and leaves to collect. I've gone home from many walks with my pockets full of rocks. So, the world is pretty fascinating if you slow down enough and pay attention. I feel so strongly about this. Knowing about my backyard birds or the sky above me really has added a whole dimension to my life. And it's just a kind of joy I'd love to pass on to kids
I love that.
because they naturally wonder about things.
Thank you. That's definitely going to be something that will resonate with our families. So thank you,
Yeah.
Deborah, for spending time, and we look forward always to whatever you publish next. Your books are always fabulous. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been fun.